Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. I'm Sue, and you've just stepped into Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Every week, I'll introduce you to a friend of mine, a remarkable entrepreneur who's not just changing the world, but also harnessing a secret weapon, time outdoors. Together, we'll dive into their journey, unpack invaluable business advice, and discover why embracing the wild is not just good for the soul, but also a goldmine for inspiration and innovation. Ready to uncover the secret that's boosting bottom lines and fueling joy? Hit subscribe and join us in the wild. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited to introduce to you Stuart Elliott. He's affectionately known as the Soul Whisperer, and he's calling in from China today. This is really, really cool. It's got to be the farthest person I've interviewed so far, but Stuart is a personal growth strategist and possibility coach. He helps midlife professionals break free from limiting beliefs and boost their self-worth. With his unique ability to connect deeply with his clients, he guides them to unlock their full potential. Drawing from his experiences living on 3 diverse continents, Stuart combines his expertise as a qualified hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner with a profound understanding of mindset. His approach empowers clients to navigate change with confidence and rediscover their passion for life. Get ready to meet a coach who's transforming lives by helping people become all they can be. Stuart, welcome to Entrepreneurs Gone Wild.
It's my pleasure and honor to be here and to talk with you and share some of my story with your audience.
I'm really excited to hear about this. So talk to me a little bit more about the people you serve and the problems you help them solve.
People I serve are people who have recognized that there's more to their life than they've actually got, because I think that far too many people are pushed down a narrow pathway through schooling, through education. I mean, when I was 15, I was at school and they said, what do you want to do? What are you going to do for the rest of your life? I've got no idea. I can't even think what I'm doing tomorrow, All I knew at that age is I wanted to get a motorbike. That's all I could tell you. And I want to work with electricity. But we're forced at that age to follow a pathway. And it could be a pathway that's been created for us by our parents saying, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be this. Or it could be a pathway where they're successful and we're trying to either avoid failing in their footsteps, or we think we have to follow in their footsteps, but it's not us. I mean, you've probably met many people say, I want to be an artist, and their parents say, there's no money in it, you must do this, you must become a dentist, you must become an engineer. And unfortunately, a lot of people go there, and then at some stage in their life, usually around sort of 40, 50, they say, there's something wrong. I'm not living my life. And one of the interesting little things I heard from a lady called Bronnie Ware, she wrote the 5 Regrets of the Dying. She was a care giver in Australia, I think it was, where she was looking after terminal patients who'd been sent home from hospital because there was nothing the hospital could do, and they're able to do that. And one of the big regrets was, number one, not choosing to be happy. That's an interesting one. And number 2 is not living my life, always living somebody else's life. And it's so sad to see someone at the last days of their life looking back with regret. And I had that real life incident once when I was about 17. I'd just been on holiday to Morocco with my girlfriend at the time. And it was June and I was living in the UK because that's where I was born. So people don't have much of a suntan in June.
It's true.
It's not the warmest climate in the world.
Exactly.
And I came back to the UK and I've got a suntan. And one evening I went down the pub. And as I walk in there, this old guy who was part of the fixtures and fittings, he was sat at the bar. That was his place. You don't take his place, that type of thing. And he just looked at me and he said, lad, he said, that's looking mighty brown. Where's that been? And I looked at him, I said, I've just been to Morocco for a couple of weeks, why? And as I said that, his eyes changed. He went so sad, wistful, and deep inside. He said, Morocco. I wish I could have done that when I was younger. And I thought to myself, thank you for such a brilliant lesson. I'm never going to get to your age and look back with regret in that way. And it's so true. I mean, he could have gone anywhere. Maybe Morocco was off the cards, but he could have, but he didn't realize he had that choice.
It's so sad. And we can live our whole lives like that, you know? And
yeah, well, that's what he's done. That was his life was there in the bar. You sit in this seat, and that was the end of his life. And, you know, it's a shame. There's no way that I think anybody should be restricted in their life in that way. If they want to go somewhere, fine. If they don't want to, that's also fine. It's their choice. But realize you have that choice.
Yes, definitely. That's huge. And so you're working with these people who are, you're working with these clients who have reached that point, and they're like, there must be something more. They've heard the clock ticking. They know. Yeah. How do you help them?
Well, it's easy to say, but it's much more technical. But it's a conversation, just like we're having now, and sharing some of the stories, some of the experiences I've had, some of the experiences I've overheard, but also using, you know, the tool set of hypnosis, NLP, etc., positive psychology, mindfulness, any of these tools. But they are presented in the conversation, you know, the opportunities to use them, just like you're working on your car, you're working on something else. You've got a toolkit, you don't use everything at once, you can't. But during that conversation, because I've become a very, very good observer and a very good listener, back from way in the days of my childhood, from being shy. You know, I was about 13, 14, going to parties, and I wanted people to talk to me. And guess what? Nobody did. I'd be sitting there. Oh, someone's coming over. Great, they're going to talk to me, because I can't talk to people unless they break the ice. And they walk towards me, and I'm getting so excited, and they walk straight past me. And that whole experience and those years actually were some of the most wonderful training lessons for me, because I learned more about people. I could read people. I mean, last night I was out with my wife. There's a friend of ours from football who, you know, is a coach to our children. They like football. You know, in America they call it soccer. But we went. He's just had a baby, and after 100 days, they have a special ceremony for the baby and the mother. And we went out for a meal with everybody else. We were in this restaurant, and I looked around, and I could see all the waiters had the same facial structure. You know, both the women and the men. It was like they were from a certain nationality group, all being brought there. And I said to my wife, you know, do you think they're all from the same area or whatever? Because I've seen it happen. They bus people in from outside, you know, to make the theme restaurant type of thing. And she didn't even notice. She had no idea. So there's things I see, and because I listen to people, and this is another thing. What do you use to listen is one of my favorite questions. And people look at me. Are you stupid? My ears, what else are we going to use? So I say, well, why don't you use your whole body?
That's a great question.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When we have this conversation, I'm doing that. I mean, I was talking to a client on the phone, just the ordinary phone. And we were talking away there, and there was a complete shift in energy. And I said to her, you've just leant back in your chair and stretched your legs out, haven't you? And then there's deathly silence. You could just imagine this.
She's like, how do you see me?
Hidden cameras. Then she said,
that's Stuart, how's he know?
Well, that's the thing. We can do that if we open ourselves up. And I think, you know, being shy was a great start in that direction. And so that's a message for anybody who's shy. Just think about what you're learning about people by being shy.
It's true. Yeah, you definitely end up in an observer seat a little bit more. Yeah. And if you hone in that, rather than sitting and feeling sorry for yourself, you know, I grew up shy as well. And that's really interesting. That is a superpower, I think.
It is, and people dismiss it and they feel bad about themselves for it. And I did. I mean, it took me a while to realize that lesson, but now I've got that ability to see it. I want to share that and tell people, because shyness can isolate you, but it doesn't have to.
It's true. That's wild. So you have you know, these conversations with your clients. What are some of the outcomes that you've seen people have, you know, after working with you?
The most interesting thing is that bemused look they get on their face. What the hell happened? I mean, there was a guy I was working with. It was he's a sports coach, and he lives in Germany. I can't remember exactly where now, but he has to fly around Europe with his people. But he's got this massive, massive, massive fear of flying. And it really was affecting his life. Even buying the tickets, it stopped him. And he said that he goes to pieces. He can't function for days before the flight. So we were having that conversation, and I was asking some, deeply penetrating questions that were connecting with his unconscious, through conversational hypnotherapy or hypnosis. And then he just stopped after about 15 minutes, and he just had this bemused grin on his face. He just was silent. And then all of a sudden he split from ear to ear. And he said, I don't know what the hell happened, but I want to get on a plane now.
What did you do, Stuart? That's so great.
That's what we just spoke, and he doesn't even know why he was scared of flying in the first place. And that's the key. We don't have to regurgitate things. And that is, one of the major differences between that and, the regular analyst that people go to, is they tend to go over all the pain, the snot and drama and everything from the past, and it's not necessary. Your unconscious mind is very, very powerful. It can lock things away, but it can have leakages. So we need to deal with those and then break it down so we're not regurgitating, we're not reliving things. And
that's so great.
Some things take longer, some things are very, very quick. But the other thing is there's layers that we have. And you may clear one layer, you've got to go and get the next one to surface, and then so on and so forth until you get rid of all the nonsense. So it can, it's not always as quick as 15, 20 minutes, but you can make phenomenal changes. And I had another lady I was working with, she was mid-50s, and unfortunately she'd just gone through a divorce. She was, being hit by menopause and everything else, and she was losing her passion for her work, and she was a trainer and a presenter on stage, and to cap it all, at the same time, she broke her foot in half. So this whole lot piled up at once, and that was causing a lot of angst, as you could say, imagine rather. So I thought, okay, well, let's just go back a bit and find a time when you were really excited, really happy, where there was just no cares in the world type of thing. And we went back, and she came up with something when she was doing a training course a couple of years ago, 10 years or so, or whatever ago. And then as she was talking, the energy wasn't there, but I didn't say anything. And I let her carry on, and she stopped. She said, no, that's not it. I said, well, just go back a bit further then, just go back a bit further. And she came back, and then she just burst out laughing. And I said, okay, what's happening now? She said, oh, no, it's a forbidden pillow fight. And that word forbidden was so charged, so loaded, that was the key. And it was a pillow fight between her and her sibling. I think it was a brother, but I can't remember if he was older or younger. But anyway, they're about 7 years old. And they were supposed to be going to bed. And as we do as children, we don't want to go to sleep, we just want to play. And they had this pillow fight. And she was so alive. And I amplified the energy and the beauty of it and the fun and everything else. And all of a sudden she started to change. And I said to her, just think about this. Whenever you have these challenges, you've got this metaphorical pillow you can take around with you. Anytime, just go whack, knock it out the way.
That's awesome.
And she loved it. And this was over about 15 minutes. And then as we were leaving, I said, and by the way, just think of this, you don't have to be like Rudolph Nureyev dancing on stage when you're doing the presentation. You can still do it even with your foot that's healed, but not as strong as it used to be. You don't have to be, pirouetting on one foot, spinning around. She loved that as well. So, it is about making these connections and the suggestions that come from them. And the key is they will tell me. Because
that's great.
Their soul is talking. That's why I got called the soul whisperer.
Yeah, and you're listening, so that's it's the perfect thing. They're talking, they're and you're able to hear it and bring that. That's amazing. Yeah, and I love too. So you're
the words. It doesn't it doesn't stop there. You hear what's behind the words, the energy behind it. That's the key.
For sure. That's so
great. Sorry.
No, that's wonderful. I'm also just amazed, so you're in China, you're able to serve clients all over the world. Here I'm in Tennessee, and that's what a great time to be alive, to be able to do this, and to, to have a practice where you're able to serve somebody just Zoom call. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky with that technology, and also people are lucky because it gives them the opportunity to meet the right people. And the work that I'm doing and a lot of other coaches are doing is very personal. And we have some people, especially more novice coaches, who think they can help everybody, and that's not true. There are people who just don't resonate with my story. Now, one of the benefits of Zoom is I can talk to other coaches, and I know who might be able to help this person who isn't, my ideal client, or I'm not their ideal coach. So we're able to refer people and say, no, I think you need to talk to that person because, it might be a better fit for you. And, it works both ways. We've got this ability to meet one of so many billion people around the world who is the right fit for us. So, that's beautiful.
That's incredible. And not to be limited by just who you can run into, when you're out walking around. It's,
but it is a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword because, if you think of a radio presenter, very often in the training, they're told to talk to one person. And, some of the older schools, I don't know if it happens still today, is they say, put a picture of one person just above your mic and talk to that person. So we've got the whole world available to us, and it's so easy to talk to everybody and talk to nobody.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Well, I think it's brilliant that you've narrowed down, like who you want to work with to being these people who are in their second chapter of life, and they're ready to finally do the things that have been on their heart for so long. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, people at middle age, they've made a lot of sacrifices along the way, haven't they? To raise families, to career and things like that. And life doesn't always work out the way you want. And, when I came over to China, I was teaching English as a second language. And one of the assistant teachers, a local person, he was about 24, 25, and we were talking, just generally talking, and he was talking about the pressure on people. You have to go to a good school at about 15, get a good result. There's exams. You've got to get 100, 150, 20% in the exams. So you get a good secondary school, then you go to a good university, then you get a good grade, then you get a good job, then you get a good car, then you get a good house, and then you can get a good wife. And this was from the male point of view. I said, okay, fine, but what about fun? And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, well, I suppose when I retire.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, and he's not isolated, and it works in the opposite direction because there's a lot of pressure on the women in a slightly different way. But there's no focus, no place in their lives for fun. All these things are supposed to give them fun. But I mean, I'm assuming, but it's not a good thing to always assume. But how many people do you know who spent the whole life making a lot of money to retire, and they spend the whole retirement spending that on doctor's bills, health bills, because they've made themselves sick in the process? So when do they actually get time to have fun? They don't.
Exactly. No, they don't. I mean, it's like you have the money and then you don't have the health. When you don't have the time, then you don't have the health when you have the time. It's ridiculous, and it's so sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. Yeah. So if I can help one person get past that, then my life has been made worthwhile.
That is wonderful. You've already helped one, I know, more than one for sure. So that's really beautiful. Let me ask you this. I know. Go ahead.
I say that one person spreads the ripples, so it is also.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that ripple effect always. I love that. You just think about that, and we never know how many people that person reached, and that person reached, and that it's just. It's really mind-blowing. But so I wanted to ask you too, you had I heard that you had an incident with some bees, but also there are a lot of outdoor experiences. So I want to hear first about, like, how do you spend time outdoors in order to get your great ideas? And then also tell us about the bees, because that's crazy.
Well, number one is I'm outdoors now. If you look at this picture, this is the scenery around where we live. Yeah, and I took
that's real.
Yeah, that's real.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
So we are in a very picturesque area of the world, and the thing about nature is when I was, I don't know, 16, 14, 13 or whatever, we had a little bird feeder in the garden. And I just spent hours just watching the birds come and feed off this feeder. It was just so beautiful. I mean, even in a city, you can find life if you look for it. And, you know, all through my life, I mean, I mentioned to you earlier about my father and my mother being in the Scouts guys type of thing. And we went out camping with them regularly. But we also, as youngsters, we went out every weekend on a drive. My father got a book from one of the local newspapers. You know, the day drives in and around Manchester, which is the area I was brought up in. And we were going out every weekend to go to these places. And then, you know, about 15 years old, I decided I wanted a motorbike, and we got motorbikes. And then we were out every weekend riding around the country. Some days we just do 300 miles for fun.
Wow, that's amazing.
You just drive, you know, and go somewhere and come back again. And you know, you've got to picture this in the UK at that time. London's about 183 miles away from Manchester. That is a weekend journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so far in the term, you know, in the mindset of the people. I mean, when I went to Africa, 600-700 miles is nothing in a day. Come back again,
right?
You know?
That's just down the road, right?
Yeah, and you hear stories of people going to see their friends who live in the countryside and the farms, you know, in Namibia and places like that. They take a 3-4 hour drive to have lunch and come back again. So, you know, the mindset's very interesting. But that was a big thing, you know, and we also had dirt bikes. We used to go off riding all over the moors and things like that. So there was always a connection to nature in a different way. You know, it's so, I don't know, it's so pervasive, so all around us that we don't even see it. And we lock ourselves into our own little world, but it was there always. I mean, nature in the UK, it involves a lot of rain as well. So
it does. It does. It's London sunshine, right?
Yeah. And you know, maybe that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move to Africa and experience Africa, you know, do an overland tour through Africa because it's warm and sunny. But you know what I found as well was all the travels, all the places I went to in Africa, the people were so happy. There was a joy in the place, and I'm sure it's connected to the sun. I'm sure it's connected to the sun because, you know, in Manchester, September, October, there's massive outbreaks of depression among the population because they know maybe May, June before the sun comes out again, before they get decent weather. And the doctors' waiting rooms filled up with people who had depression. Yet these people, they had nothing, but they were the happiest people in the world. And that was beautiful to actually recognize. And the sun does make you happy. If it's a beautiful day, you mean you smile, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, there's something, I think the vitamin D, the whole, you know, that sense of you can just do things. You don't feel hampered by the weather.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then,
so,
go on.
I was going to say, tell about the bees. We got to hear about the bees too.
As I moved, you know, on in life, I decided, you know, 86 it was, that I was going to do a 6-month trip through Africa. And we spent 6 months traveling from South Africa back to the UK, camping every single night. And we had so many incidences. I mean, one of the first things was in the Kalahari Desert area, Botswana, where we had lions and wild animals sniffing around the tent at night time. And that can be quite eye-opening. You know, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, but the thing is, I got used to it so much and I loved it so much that when they weren't there, something was missing. So it also opened up that appreciation for wildlife. And going back to the bee story, it was one New Year. My wife and I had decided to go we lived in South Africa, Johannesburg. We decided to go on holiday for the New Year to a place called the Tuli Block, which is the border of Zimbabwe, South Africa and Botswana. There's a little corner there. And we go to this remote border crossing, which is we have to leave the car there, and then there's a footbridge over the river, the Limpopo River, to cross over, and then we get taken to this tented camp. And we were there for a few days, and we had the camp basically to ourselves. And then on the last morning, it was New Year's morning, New Year's Eve, the ranger said to us the night before, he said, I'm not going to wake up early to take you on a dawn walk, but you've been here a while, you know everything, so it's okay, you can go on your own. And around 3 a.m. that morning, a whole herd of elephants came through the camp.
Wow.
And we woke up and we watched them from the tent, and we've got no fences or anything. It was just so beautiful just to watch the elephants, and after about an hour they'd passed through, they'd done their thing with the food and the trees and the branches and stuff like that. And we went out and did our little game walk. One of the people who'd arrived decided to come with us. He was a younger guy, about mid-20s. He was on his own and a teacher in Botswana, English teacher in Botswana. So we went out and we were off there. And we were having a beautiful dawn, it's just the most amazing dawn. The light is different at dawn, and everything else. And then all of a sudden I felt this thing on my neck. What's that? And then another one, and then another one. And then within a few seconds, I was dancing around like a demented dervish. And I suddenly realized that there's this big black cloud of bees around me. And I ran like hell. Number one, I was scared and I wanted to get away.
Yeah.
But number two, back in my mind, I thought, well, if I go that way, they're not going to affect the other people.
Right.
So I'm off there running like heck, and I'm running and running and running. And these things are still crazily attacking me. And then I came across some rocky ground, and as I was running I started stumbling and I felt my legs giving way, and as I felt my legs giving way, I also felt my sphincter opening up, and I thought to myself that if I fall down, I'm dead. That's it, because there's no way they're going to leave me alone. And I just thought, it's not very nice and not a very honorable way to die, being stung to death by bees with soiled underpants. So somehow I got some strength in my legs, and they were pumping up and down like the shock absorbers, one of these mighty four-wheel drives. And I was just screaming through this rocky ground. And I had this weird thought in my mind that, God help those elephants if I find them, because I'd be through them like the Skittles as a bowling alley. It's amazing the things that go through your mind in those times. Anyway, I outran them. I suddenly realized they weren't there, and then I stopped and I thought, well, I better go and find the others, So I'm retracing my steps, because I don't know how far I've come, and that. But I found my wife, and then she stood there, and I found out sadly that she'd been stung as many times as me. And we spent a few minutes counting. We had over 90 stings each.
Oh my goodness.
And it was midsummer, South Africa is in the southern hemisphere. So we just had shorts and t-shirts on, but the stings were in our groin, our armpits and our ears, around our eyes and our hair, legs, everywhere. We were just covered. And then as we were sort of doing this, I said, well, where's the other guy? We better find him. So we did. And he'd managed to find a cliff to scale down, the vertical cliff. And he was lucky, because he was more allergic than we were to the bee stings, and he only had a couple of stings, but his arm was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I said, okay, let's get him up the cliff. And as we were doing that, I noticed my wife was going into shock. So I said, okay, let's get back. So I led them back to the camp area, and whilst they're all, my wife was lying down and they're telling the story, I said, I'm going to go and get cleaned up and then pack the things, because this is the day we're going home. And I went and cleaned everything up and packed the stuff, and then I'm itching to get going. We've got about a 2 to 3 hour drive to the border. We've got to get across the footbridge, go through customs and immigration, get in the car, and then drive 7 hours home to Johannesburg. And that's all I was focused on. And at that, as I was focused on that, I didn't notice the stings. I didn't notice anything, even though we'd been pulling stings out everywhere and everything else. And the funny thing is, I got home without any effects of the stings.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing.
Yeah, well, the next thing I woke up, I was like the original Michelin
Oh
man. I
no.
was,
So you put it on pause for a moment. It didn't
yeah,
finish
that was the
until it was.
beautiful thing, that we have that power.
Yeah.
And because I had something
Wow.
more important than worrying about being stung by the bees, I was able
Yeah.
consciously, I didn't know how the heck I did it. I was able
Yeah.
unconsciously to put it on hold.
That
And
is
there's
incredible.
the little aftertail of this. I mean, there's a couple of them, but one of them is so funny, which just again shows us the power we have within us.
Mm.
A couple of weeks later, I was in the garden, and we've got a swimming pool there, and just near the swimming pool, there's a tree called an acacia karoo tree, and this tree in summer has the most beautiful little yellow flowers, but thousands of them, highly scented and everything else, and it's just a stunning ball of yellow, like a big lollipop.
Mm.
And I went over there to smell, the flowers, because it's just a sublime smell. And as I put my head down, there's a bee.
No.
And it triggered me. And I jumped back so high, and I was almost going to land in the middle of the pool. And I sort of midair pirouetted and then landed on the edge of the pool without any problems. And my wife, who's there, she said, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "No, there's a bee in the tree." And then she said, "Okay." But I mean, there's no way I could have done that intentionally.
Right. Yeah.
I
That's
jumped
really
about
something.
6, 7, 8 feet backwards, and I was about 3, 4 foot in the air. No way I could do that intentionally.
Not twice.
And then land.
It's mind over matter, I guess. I mean,
It
that's
is. It
that's
is.
really
It
amazing.
shows you again what we can do if we need to, and we've all got
Right.
abilities like that, but we just
Yeah.
don't. I don't think it's a good thing to have the serious life challenge to bring that, knowledge, that awareness of what we can do. And that's another thing that
Yeah.
motivates me to show people through stories like that, and being charged by an African buffalo and all the other things that have happened in the bush and through life. Share those stories that people can get the message without having to have the same threats, and then they can start growing into their full potential. Or as I say, unshackling their
Just
brilliance.
seeing that somebody else did it. Yeah. I mean, just seeing here's proof somebody else did this. If somebody else did that person's a person. You're a person. You could do. Like, that's so great.
That's the beauty, because we have so much potential within us, and children, they have unlimited potential. They know it. I mean, have you ever heard of a child of about 11 months old who suddenly knows it cannot walk, who's scared of walking? They just get this, I can walk. And they do. They fall over many times, but they get up, they carry on. But how difficult it is to walk. Really, if you think about the balance, the motor control, the muscles, the strength, and all these things, there's a lot of work.
And they figure it out.
Yeah, they just do it. And so many other things until the societal programming kicks in.
That's beautiful. You have, I love what you're doing. I think this is fantastic. You could be breathing new life into all these people that you're serving and showing them, look, this is what's possible. That's really, really cool. All right. What advice would you pass along to listeners?
The biggest thing is, I would suggest, is it's not your fault. People blame themselves. I'm not good enough for this. It's not their fault. They've been conditioned that way through whatever, whether it's through schooling. I mean, I was on a call. I can't remember. It was a group call with someone, but there was a gentleman on there he's a CEO or something, and he was so scared of public speaking. And what had happened when he was about 4 or 5, he found, it took him a long while to find this, but he had been given a speech to do by the teacher. Get up in front of the class now and talk for 5 minutes, present. And he was so scared, he ran away, because the teacher laughed at him for his nerves. The students laughed at him for his nerves. And he took that with him as a problem in himself. And that's what we do, unfortunately. And we have this subconscious message that it's our fault. There's something wrong with me. There's something deficient. I mean, another thing that is so powerful in a negative way is a concerned parent. A child starts crying. What does the parent often say? What's wrong with you? How many times they hear that over their life and they grow up thinking there's something wrong with me? And yet the parent's concerned and they're trying to find out what's making the child cry, but they're not asking that question. They're asking what's wrong with you. And if they knew what that was implanting into the person's mind, maybe they would say, okay, what's making you cry?
Yeah, that's a whole different question, isn't it?
Yeah, there's an external thing. And, you know, these messages of doubt, you know, in English, you know, in English, we use an expression, how can I? And the message there is, I'm not sure whether I can. If we just switch that around to say, I wonder how I can, now we've got positivity, we haven't got negativity, we haven't got doubt. The only doubt we've got is about the how, not whether you can or not.
That's a great reframe. I like that a lot.
It is.
I wonder
so
how
simple,
I can. That's so good.
Yeah. And when we use it so many times in our life that we're programming ourselves all the time into limitation. And we don't know it. That's the challenge, because we don't think about it. So if we become aware of it, or should I say not if, when we become aware of it, again, there's these little words that change us. When we become aware of it, then we can say, okay, fine, I did it. That's wonderful. It's another opportunity to grow, not castigate ourselves, not say you stupid or anything like that, but just say wonderful. You know, so there's so many things there, that little things, and it's not the people's fault, because that's the way they've been brought up, they've been led to believe. And, you know, we take on those messages without realizing it.
Yeah, that does happen. That's really beautiful. I like that a lot. All right, Stuart, we could talk forever. I love this interview so much, but so where can people find out about more, and especially working with you?
Well, my website is coachstuart.com, and Stuart is Stuart. I was lucky this year. I suddenly decided, you know, Coach Stuart sounds good. Let me see if there's a domain available. And there it was, waiting for me.
How about that? Amazing.
coachstuart.com. And, you know, I offer, you know, a free consultation for 60 minutes. And it's actually a supercharge your self-worth conversation. And people will get a big benefit from just having that one conversation. So that's the best way, is to go there. And you can always reach me on LinkedIn, but, you know, that's not so easy to give you the...
it's like linkedin.com/ yeah, it's crazy. I like that, coachstuart.com. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this. It's my honor. This has been really fun.
And I hope one of your listeners, at least one or more, has just got one little nugget, has made them open their minds that little bit, just that crack, and then it will start going from there.
It does happen like that. That's great.
It does.
Wonderful.
It's happened to me.